the Velvet LeChance, which is a mixture of blackberry, honey, spiced wine, and a touch of Nightshade. Perfectly safe, I assure you. Must have been nothing.
Welcome to the Bee and Barb. Talen-Jei and Keerava have graciously permitted me to utilize their quaint tavern here in Riften to showcase some adaptations of their 3 signature cocktails, including one of my own design, that seeks to follow Talen-Jei's instructions to the letter. If you're new to my Elder Scrolls content on this channel, we've taken a shot at all of the meads from the Elder Scrolls cookbook, my own recipe for Horgir's Dragon's Breath mead, the spiced wines of SKYRIM, reverse engineered the Dunmer beverage Sujamma with the assistance of Talviel from Talviel's Kitchen, and even delved into the more illicit substance known as skooma. Last month, a second Elder Scrolls cookbook was released, and while it contains some great in-universe world building, like the previous volume, it does not contain any recipes for Talen-Jei's infamous cocktails, so I will be taking the next few weeks to look at some recipes from other creators, and craft my own recipes with the sole goal of lore accuracy in mind, as every fan version of the drinks that I've seen take enough creative liberties that the cocktail winds up being true to the spirit of Talen-Jei's instructions, but not the letter. Speaking of the amiable Argonian, upon entering the Bee and Barb for the first time, Talen-Jei will greet you with a pleasant,
Welcome to the Bee and Barb, my lord. If I can interest you in one of our special drinks, you let me know.
However, in just about any playthrough involving the Thieves Guild, you will more than likely get off on the wrong foot with him before ever getting around to ordering a drink after you intimidate his beloved Keerava at Brynjolf's request.
How about handling a few deadbeats for me? They owe our organization some serious coin, and they've decided not to pay.
Any tips about Keerava?
Keerava's stubborn, but she's got a soft spot for family. Talk to Talen-Jei at the Bee and Barb, and see if you can get something out of him. They're well acquainted, if you catch my meaning.
You might want to talk some sense into Keerava.
With the rumors going around about how poorly your guild's been doing, she's become much too bold. I'm not that foolish. The last thing I want is a war with your people.
Then help me convince her to pay.
Look, I'm only telling you this because I care for her. Don't mistake this as acceptance for what you do. Keerava has some family at a farm just inside of Morrowind. If you mention you know about it, she might just listen to you. Just please don't harm anyone. I couldn't bear the thought.
Are you ready to pay Brynjolf what you owe?
No, and I never will. Now get out of my inn.
Maybe I should visit that farm in Morrowind.
How could you possibly know about... Please, my family means too much to me. Don't hurt them.
Then pay up and I'll forget about it.
Very well. Here. Take this back to Brynjolf and tell him he'll have no more trouble from me. I can't stand this city. It's impossible to make a decent living here.
We got the message. Now just take your business elsewhere.
You can just order the drinks anyways, but I wanted our muse today to be happy with us so we can use the bar to sample and replicate his concoctions here at the Bee and Barb. Luckily, you don't have to remain outside of his good graces. If you offer to help him construct an engagement ring for Keerava, he'll be ever thankful for your assistance and seems to let bygones be bygones. It's not a necessary step, but it helps me sleep better at night. Sorry about all that. So, how did you meet Keerava?
I met her when I wandered into Riften a few years ago. Been smitten with her ever since. In fact, I'm thinking of asking her to marry me. In Black Marsh, tradition dictates we present a potential mate a unique wedding ring to represent our future bond.
Can you tell me about the wedding ring?
Every Argonian wedding proposal band is supposed to have 3 flawless amethysts as part of their design. 2 of the gems, the ones on the outside, represent the couple to be married. The amethyst in the center represents the Hist, the entity that all Argonians consider a sacred part of our lives. I already have the gold band, but all I need are 3 flawless amethysts to complete the setting.
I can find those for you.
I was hoping you'd offer. I didn't think it was my place to ask such a favor of you. I thank you. Tidings.
I found those amethysts for you.
I don't know what to say. Such kindness is unheard of in these times. Here, I want you to accept this as payment for your sacrifice. And we both thank you. May the earth beneath your feet be always soft.
Now that we're best buds again, let's hear about the first of those specialty drinks.
Hey, Talen, get off your lazy tail and take care of the customer.
Keep your scales on. You want a drink?
You mentioned you serve special drinks?
3, in fact. They're my own recipe. Brought them over here from my days as a bartender in Gideon. First is the Velvet LeChance, which is a mixture of blackberry, honey, spiced wine, and a touch of Nightshade. Perfectly safe, I assure you.
Each of his cocktails is named after someone or something notable on the continent of Tamriel. While the spelling is slightly different, I'd say it's safe to assume that this drink is named after the Dark Brotherhood speaker of the Shadenhall Sanctuary in the year 3rd Era 433, Lucien LaChance.
I do so love Riften. I journeyed here in my youth. A thief took my purse, so I took his eyes. It was a fair exchange.
The use of a poisonous ingredient clues me in on this inspiration, and I'd say that his dulcet tones could be described as velvety.
A poison stew, and I was always partial to apples myself.
Editing Nick here. Before we move on to the recipes section, it's probably become somewhat apparent that there have been some discrepancies in the pronunciation of this drink's name. The Elder Scrolls is notorious for inconsistencies in pronunciation by both fans and different voice actors. Here's a list of commonly mispronounced words in the series. Leave a comment with your hot takes on how they should be said. Even earlier in this video, you might have caught that I said Talen-Jei while Brynjolf said
Talen-Jei.
Keerava, in contrast, says Talen, and I think she probably has a better grasp on how to pronounce her lover's name, especially considering that they come from the same culture, while our resident Thieves Guild hunk probably doesn't think too hard about the intricacies of Argonian pronunciations. I generally defer to pronunciations of the native speaker on words that come from different cultures, but this one's unique in that it's a name of a drink made by an Argonian that seems to refer to an imperial assassin but misspells the word.
I am Lucien LaChance.
You see what I mean? Even Lucien says it slightly differently than Talen-Jei does. He really puts some respect on the A in
LaChance.
Sorry about mispronouncing your name in the video, by the way.
I've suffered worse.
Okay. The spelling discrepancy could be explained away by the cultural difference, physical distance, and time between the events that both figuratively and literally immortalized Lucien in 3rd Era 433 and Talen-Jei's time as a bartender in Gideon in the late 4th Era. Of course, the most straightforward answer is that whoever came up with the drink name at Bethesda probably just didn't brush up on their Oblivion Dark Brotherhood character name spellings, even if he is in the game as the Spectral Assassin. But it's nonetheless an interesting examination of the evolution of names and stories over the ages. Some say the spelling and pronunciation issues are intentional on Bethesda's part, as not everyone in a given world would know how to correctly spell or say every word they come across, while others chalk it up to a lack of consistency in production quality.
All of this just works.
In any event, I should have just talked to Talen-Jei before recording this video to get my pronunciation down, but I was more concerned with getting his name right rather than the drink itself. I was also watching a lot of other videos in my research for adapting the drink, and it seems that a lot of people, like myself, just default to a softer CH sound when talking about it. Although Experience Bar actually got the drink name right, but pronounced Talen the same way as Brynjolf.
Talen-Jei.
Anyways, sorry if this bugs you, but I hope you can forgive the oversight as we continue to mispronounce it and make the first version of the Velvet LeChance.
The first creator's recipe we'll look to is Greg from HowToDrink. This was his take on the Velvet LeChance.
The Velvet LeChance, the other night when I was working on these recipes, I made a note that I think it'll be better with an egg white that's just improved the mouthfeel. I haven't actually tried it that way yet, so we're gonna try it today, but I think that'll be good. I think we should add the egg white last though. So we're gonna start by throwing 5 or 6 blackberries into my shaker. I think we're gonna go with 5. 1 ounce of honey syrup, 1 ounce of Amaro di Angostura, 1 ounce of Antica Formula. Vermouths are made with some wormwood typically. That's actually where the word for vermouth comes from. Vermouth, wormwood. And that wormwood is largely regarded as being poisonous, and that nightshades are regarded as being poisonous. Although potatoes are a nightshade. I guess vodka would have been some nightshade, but that's not going to add much to the flavor of this thing at all. I don't know, I thought vermouth kind of made sense there for our nightshade stand-in. That's my logic. Now I'm going to muddle this. Okay, I just want to crush these berries. Now I want to add an egg white to this. Normally I would do that first, but because I wanted to muddle those blackberries, I wanted to do that last. Also, this is untested. I haven't tested the egg white here. I hope this works. I think this is going to be very nice. I'm going to dry shake this because of an egg white being present. Gonna add 1 large ice cube, 1 cracked ice cube. I'm going to double strain into that. Yeah, it looks pretty cool, actually. It's got a nice gradation. I think the egg white was a good move here. Okay, the Velvet LeChance.
His justification for using vermouth as the stand-in for the poisonous nightshade is a little bit of a stretch, considering that it's only really a historical perception of being poisonous, but as we explored in the skooma video earlier this year, it's a bit of a misconception. The compound within wormwood that was perceived as poisonous is called thujone, which is also present at higher concentrations in liquors like milords and absinthe, although the latter is the only one that was banned in the US based on a flawed study of thujone in the 70s. Ooh, it's got a nice spice kick. I think that Amaro de Angostura almost gives it like a Coca-Cola vibe, but the berry is still definitely present under all of those spices. I think I would have appreciated a little bit of actual red wine being used in the mix, although vermouth is generally a fortified wine, so I guess I can count it, but I still would have appreciated just some regular red wine used in it somehow, even if you were relying on the spice element being added by these two fellas. Let's see how it tastes.
Let's give this a try.
That is beautifully balanced. The combination of the Amaro de Angostura and the Antica Formula vermouth is like a really complex, cola-y flavor that pairs very nicely with the blackberry, and the honey is giving it just a touch of sweetness in tandem with the muddled blackberries. And that egg white truly does make it velvety, so I'm really glad that he made the decision to add that last minute. Even if it's not entirely lore accurate, this is still very good and somewhat unorthodox. The fact that it is just 1 ounce of each means that this is a very mild cocktail. The Amaro de Angostura comes in at 35%, but the Antica Formula is only 16.5, I believe. Yeah, so all in all, this is not one standard drink, it's slightly under, so it's a good refreshing beverage that you could just enjoy without getting too tipsy. And I do very much like some of those richer spice characteristics that are coming through, and they do pair very nicely. So, here's to you, Greg.
That's yummy. It's almost gross. As in, like, it almost tastes like black licorice or something. But it's just on the edge there where it's like, it's really good. It tastes fruity, but it's like very robust, I guess.
The second adaptation we'll consider comes from a seemingly dormant YouTube channel, formerly called Experience Bar, then rebranded as Silly Goose Content, before ultimately going radio silent. He did delve more deeply into the thought process on ingredient accuracy, and this is what their blog says about the interpretation of Talen-Jei's instructions. It's not often that you get an actual cocktail recipe spelled out for you in a game. That goes double for a fantasy game and triple for a fantasy game set in such a supposedly wild and savage land as Skyrim. And yet, Talen-Jei of the Bee and Barb in Riften offers us not just 1 recipe, but 3, one of which is the delightfully titled Velvet LeChance, named of course after Lucien LaChance of Oblivion Dark Brotherhood fame. His original recipe gives us the ingredients, but not the specific amounts. He wouldn't want to make it too easy for all the budding Nord mixologists out there to steal his ideas, after all. He calls for blackberries, honey, spiced wine, and just a hint of nightshade. I'm all for experimenting with new flavors in my drinks, but I do draw the line at literal poison. That's why I swapped out the nightshade for its cousin in the greater nightshade family, red chilies, specifically jalapenos. Combining it with honey in a simple syrup rather than muddling it along with the blackberries allows us to capture more of the spice from the seeds without too much extra effort. You could also try using potato vodka, also a nightshade, or try your luck with some kind of tomato infusion. also a Nightshade, but I like the added bite of the spice. The only other adjustment was the addition of brandy, which you can feel free to leave out if you want to keep it authentically SKYRIM. I like the added alcohol heat the brandy adds to the kick, and it matches up very nicely with the red wine, for obvious reasons. Perhaps not precisely the original recipe by Talen-Jei, but certainly the closest we can get without killing ourselves after a single sip. Best enjoyed in batches, treat this as you would a sangria, and share it out with friends. It's smooth, fruity, and on the sweeter side. Should be quite the crowd pleaser if my friends are anything to judge by. Just make sure you don't go too hard on the spice or you might have a taste bud murder on your hands. Though to be honest, that sounds like it would only be appropriate for a drink named after an assassin. To make his recipe 2 different ways, I'll actually prepare it without the brandy first for the more lore-accurate attempt, and then we'll mix it after tasting to try his preferred combination. We'll need 1 ounce of brandy, 8 to 10 muddled blackberries, 3 ounces of red wine, and 1 ounce of honey and jalapeno simple syrup. Now this is the part where we're kind of at an impasse. In his instructions, he starts off by adding the muddled blackberries and brandy to a mixing glass first, and then further muddling to combine them and infuse the brandy with some of the blackberry juice, and then straining that into a shaker filled with ice, and then adding the red wine and honey and jalapeno simple syrup. But given that he gave the instruction that we could keep it accurate by leaving the brandy out, I am instead going to add the wine to this glass with our muddled blackberries, and then strain that into our cocktail shaker. Should work out. Speaking of our wine, while he used an Australian Shiraz in his video, I opted for this Cabernet Sauvignon from Costco, fittingly titled Oblivion. From the bottle, release yourself into the unconscious by embracing food, family, friends, and great wine. At Oblivion Cellars, we believe entering into a state of insensibility is about winding down to forget the daily stresses of life. So after a long day at work or the daily grind, enjoy what life has to give. Pair this tasty bottle of wine with roasted meats, grilled vegetables, or assorted cheeses. It isn't actually named after the video game, but I treat it as a little nod in Lucien's direction as he serves the Dreadfather in the Void.
One day, you will serve our dread father, as I do now.
It is also pre-measured. I only had 3 ounces left anyways. That step feels a little unnecessary if we're just gonna shake it and then pour it anyways, but oh well. Since we've already added the red wine, now this step is just to add our 1 ounce of honey jalapeno simple syrup. And then shake. And then we're gonna try to get away with using a glass similar to the one that he used, but I don't know what kind of glass that was. So if you know, let me know, but the closest thing I can think of is a Glencairn. Might be a little too small, but we'll see. And then of course, we garnish with a lemon and blackberry, which lemon is also not lore accurate to the cocktail, but whatever. I'm gonna take it off anyways to drink it. I'll present it when I add the brandy, but this is his lore accurate version of the Velvet LeChance. The ice is actually killing a lot of the aroma of the red wine. I don't really smell much of anything. Like maybe a hint of that honey and jalapeno, but I'm not really getting much else.
Cheers.
And that jalapeno is heavy on the body, but the honey's not too sweet. So there's a little kick there. It's spicy, but it's not crazy. It does have a very round fruitiness right up front, so I kind of see where it's coming from. So I think the blackberry is influencing and helping the wine sort of come up as it warms up, but I think this may have benefited actually from not being as cold as it is. The finish, of course, is very strongly jalapeno. There's little hints of blackberry as it goes, but it's not quite much beyond that. Let's try this his preferred way with the brandy, which I do think will actually work quite nicely in this particular version of the drink. And just to be thorough, and to maybe bring a little bit of blackberry back to the palate, I am going to add it to our muddled blackberry and now red wine mixture here. And we'll just double strain it again. I'm doing this slightly off screen because I don't want to get my green screen all sticky. Now, it does look unnatural to me to have a Glencairn that full. I'll live with it. And I am going to make the same mistake that he did and just drink with the garnishes on.
Oh, I think I've got a bit of blackberry on my nose there.
That's a lot better with the brandy. The cognac really tamps down some of the rich fruitiness and rounds out some of the jalapeno notes, but that is still the dominant flavor on the finish. But it's less intense. So oddly, the cognac reduced the intensity of the drink after all.
It's so pretty.
I'll actually take that garnish.
Ooh. Does this one have like whiskey or bourbon or something in it?
It does have cognac.
Got it on my nose.
That's why you always take the garnishes off before you take a sip.
I do not like that one. Oh, it's so spicy.
Yeah, that one has honey jalapeno syrup.
That's very spicy. I think if I was prepared for it, it would have been really good. But the juxtaposition of these two made it like so intense. Like I was expecting another sweet drink, maybe a little whiskey, not a pepper. Okay, now that I know what I'm expecting. I like it significantly more when I know what's happening. It's still very spicy. Wow. You can't even smell the spicy though. I couldn't drink much more than that. I think it would give me a tummy ache. It's a good one though. Very spicy. Like, so spicy, and I like spicy food, so.
Now that we've made How to Drink and Experience Bar's respective recipes, let's try to come up with one ourselves that follows Talen-Jei's instructions to the letter. For the spiced wine, the obvious choice would be the first Elder Scrolls Cookbook's rendition of Sans spiced wine, as it is the only one obtainable in-game and is often referred to as just spiced wine in the game files. For a detailed exploration of that drink, check out my Spiced Wines of SKYRIM video. Since it's the only alcohol truly present in Talen-Jei's description, we will be using a full 5 ounces of Sans spiced wine. Beyond that, blackberries and honey are rather straightforward, but we still need to settle on a Nightshade replacement. While I weighed the possibility of finding a similar flower to the in-game Nightshade, many, such as the deadly Nightshade, are poisonous. However, like the previous creators noted, the Nightshade family contains many fruits and tubers like peppers, tomatoes, and potatoes. Of those options, I agree with Experience Bar in that the spicy quality of the peppers could be classified as damaging our health, magicka regen, and stamina, while simultaneously fortifying our destruction, if my God of War blood mead is any indication. So I'm gonna throw in just a little bit of dried chili de arbol pepper into our muddling and simply garnish with a safer purple flower. While decidedly not a nightshade and perhaps lacking the number of petals present in the nightshade, the violet matches the overall shape and coloration of the in-game nightshade and even has a velvety petal texture. Although you could probably also get away with a purple pansy. It's a little bigger too. So, for the most lore-accurate but still safe to consume take on Talen-Jei's cocktail, the Velvet LeChance, add 6 blackberries and about a quarter of a chile de arbol pepper, and 21 grams or 1 tablespoon of raw honey in a shaker, and muddle until the blackberries are all effectively juiced, and the honey has dissolved into that juice, and the pepper has infused it with some spice, or about 30 seconds. Add 5 ounces of Sans spiced wine, some ice, and shake for 20 to 30 seconds. Double strain into a coupe glass, and garnish with a cocktail skewer of violets and blackberries, or a purple flower of your choice that won't kill you. I chose this Seneca faceted coupe glass from Visky as my glassware today because its geometric facets remind me of the blackberries' drupelets. You can pick a set of 2 up for yourself at visky.com with code NICK10 for 10% off. So the nose on this one is very strongly brown sugary. I grabbed the first volume of the Elder Scrolls Cookbook just to brush up, and their recipe for Sans spiced wine contains cinnamon, cardamom, juniper berries, ginger, ground pepper, brown sugar, brandy, and port on top of red wine. It's already a litany of spices present. And then also some sweetness. So because sun-spiced wine is already going to be a little bit on the sweeter side, I do think this will be the sweetest version of our cocktail thus far. Yeah, it's very brown sugary on the nose. There's a little hint of that juniper and maybe some cardamom hiding in the back. I'm not getting a lot of capsaicin spice on the nose. I did make a batch earlier with one whole dried chili de árbol pepper, and that was a terrible mistake. I think we could have gotten away with maybe a third of a pepper or a half of a pepper, because it is a little bit lower on spice than I'd like, but it's still present. You know what, maybe in this quarter of a pepper quantity, it just pairs nicely with the black pepper present in sun-spiced wine. I also really like my little skewers. I bought them for a cocktail contest that I didn't end up winning, but I did make a video about it a couple years ago if you want to see. It's a very good fig whiskey sour. While it's still very sweet on the palate, there is a hint of that pepper at the back of your throat. But actually, you know what? I'm committing. I think that the quarter of a pepper used is just the right amount, because the jalapeno simple syrup there, that was pretty potent comparatively. I don't think that the Nightshade flowers are particularly spicy. I think it would just be a little hint of that. So I think that this truly is as lore accurate as we could possibly make this cocktail. Unless I were to buy a deadly Nightshade and just affix it to the outside of the glass for presentation. But even then, I don't love that idea. Call me risk averse, but
Editing Nick again. I spent arguably too much time pontificating in my research on safer Nightshade equivalents, as it really put a Dwemer cog in the video production pipeline, and even the two flowers I settled on as options weren't exactly perfect. As excited as I was about the violet, it really does look more like a death bell. However, as I was editing, I actually did stumble across a few flowers that frustratingly fit the requirements more closely. First, I present to you the Solanum dulcamara, or the bittersweet nightshade. It is a nightshade, it is purple, it is much less toxic than the deadly nightshade, and it even looks remarkably similar to the in-game flower. While the deadly nightshade has more of a bell shape, the flowers of the bittersweet variant contains 5 long petals that splay out like the game's depiction, although they seem to bend backward pretty quickly before producing a berry. To be on the safe side, if I had found this flower, I probably still wouldn't have incorporated the flower itself into the drink itself and just affixed it on the outside of the glass, as it is still mildly toxic, just something to the tune of 25 times less than the deadly Atropa belladonna. Solanum crispum, or the climbing potato vine, would also fit this category of still kind of poisonous, but not enough to kill you nightshades that look like the ones in Skyrim, but the bittersweet nightshade still looks the closest. Second, we have the fittingly titled Royal Velvet Petunia, another nightshade member. While it doesn't match the visual aspect as closely, the name was too good not to include, and I would feel more comfortable floating one of these on the surface of the cocktail, as petunias have been used as garnishes in recipes before, with the caveat that you still probably shouldn't actually eat the flower itself. Lastly, the flowers of both eggplants and blue potatoes are purple nightshades and fit the general shape. I did consider using eggplant in the cocktail for color, but I still think the capsaicin kick from the pepper is more interesting. Eggplant is more of a medium for parmesan and/or spices in my book. I don't know. I feel like the nightshade flower would probably be more bitter than spicy, but both can account for the reaction when the player consumes it. So thus ends my quest for the perfect flower to use in our Velvet LeChance. The violets and pansies work for color and safety, but I think if I were to do it again, I'd probably try to get my hands on a Royal Velvet Petunia for the name alone, or if I was confident enough in my ability to make the bittersweet nightshade flower as safe as possible, I'd go that route. Still a lot safer than the deadly one and looks more accurate. Now, back over to the bar for my final thoughts on this version of the Velvet LeChance.
The intense sweetness does provide a little bit of that velvetiness, and I do think it works at a little warmer temperature. I added less ice to this than on the other ones because I didn't want it to be too cold. I think that the sweetness lends some credence to the velvet part of the name.
Oh, the flowers are so cute. This one smells like it'll be sweet like the first one. I know that taste. What is it?
It is spiced wine, honey, blackberries. It also has nightshade in it.
Isn't nightshade a poison?
Peppers are nightshades, potatoes are nightshades, tomatoes are nightshades.
Your girl is a lightweight.
It's not really a cocktail in the traditional sense, but it is a very fun add-on to an already spiced wine. But we kind of just took a spiced wine that was already sweetened and spiced and just added sweetening agents in honey and spice in pepper for the nightshade and further sweetness from the blackberries. So it doesn't really follow any true cocktail categories, and I really respect what these two creators have done in making it a true cocktail, but this is how it is described in game, and so this is what I'm going with as the official, unofficial Velvet LeChance.
Editing Nick again, just butting in real quick. We gotta stop meeting like this though. I hope you enjoyed the recipes. I really got hung up in the moment on the concept of a cocktail when shooting this. But upon further reflection, I have two thoughts. First, a lot of people, myself included, clearly, subconsciously think of a cocktail in the drink sense as containing a base distilled liquor, generally around 35 to 40% ABV, and being the equivalent of one standard drink. But that isn't necessarily the truth. The word at its core really just means a mixture of diverse elements and ingredients, which is still the case with the Velvet LeChance. Of course, people in our world would still not call a spiced wine a cocktail on a bar menu unless it did contain a mixture of alcohols of varying proofs. However, even with a stricter definition of the word, it doesn't really apply here to begin with. Talen-Jei never uses the word cocktail in reference to his unique beverages, but rather simply calls them special drinks. Just another thing I could have avoided by visiting the Bee and Barb again before shooting. The other two videos on his drinks won't make this mistake. Now let's see Autumn's ranking of the 3 recipes before the grand conclusion.
So, in terms of what I like the best, I like this one, and then I like this one, and then I like this one. But it's only because I'm not super into red wine. In terms of what is most lore accurate, this one wins. And that's fine, I don't have to like everything. In fact, I rarely like things on this channel.
And that, my friends, concludes my exploration of Talen-Jei's first cocktail, taking other creators' recipes into consideration and settling on the most lore-accurate interpretation possible. I'm sure our undead Lucien would approve of this formidable yet delectable cocktail.
I can taste it.
Up next, we'll delve into Talen-Jei's second specialty drink, the White Gold Tower.
Final insert from Editing Nick. I'll keep this one super short and try not to do this as much in future videos. But it has been kind of fun for me to have a conversation with you about the video as it's playing out. This edit took a lot longer than I thought it would, so the White Gold Tower video is actually delayed, but I've got some good videos cooking for you that will come out first. In any event, here's a little tease for what's in store in that video when it comes out.
HowToDrink and Experience Bar have both also made their own renditions of that drink, but we'll also add one additional recipe with the help of Talviel from Talviel's Kitchen. She is retired now, but has graciously agreed to assist in our preparations of her specific adaptation of the recipe. So if that sounds interesting to you, and until then, please like, subscribe, and consider becoming a channel member here or over on Patreon like the noble benefactor IKnewThatWasADog. Check out my Spiced Wines of Skyrim video or my Skyrim Mead playlist here, or the White Gold Tower if that video's out. And until then, cheers, my friends. How poisonous did you say that flower was?
Perfectly safe, I assure you. Ours is to smile at your passing, friend.
There is murder in the air.